My name is Kimberly, and I just turned 29 last month. I always thought family meant everything, despite our complicated history. That belief shattered when I scrolled through Instagram on a Monday morning and saw my parents and sister smiling in Santorini. The caption hit like a punch. Nothing but real family on this journey. Confused and hurt, I called my sister. No answer. Then my bank app notified me. $10,400 withdrawn. Emergency fund emptied. Their Greek vacation was on my dime. Before I continue, where are you watching from today? Hit subscribe if family betrayal stories resonate with you, because mine is about to get wild. Growing up in suburban Michigan, I was raised in what most would consider a typical middle-class family. My parents, Margaret and Thomas, worked hard to provide for my sister Jessica and me. Dad was an accountant at a local firm, and Mom taught third grade at the elementary school down the street. We lived in a modest 4-bedroom house with a backyard just big enough for summer barbecues and the occasional birthday party. From an early age, my parents emphasized financial responsibility. Dad would sit us down every month to explain household budgeting, the importance of saving, and how credit cards could be dangerous if misused. Always have an emergency fund, he would say, because life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. The irony of this advice is not lost on me now. I took those lessons seriously. After graduating from Michigan State with a marketing degree, I moved to Chicago and secured a position at a digital marketing agency. For 5 years, I diligently saved 20% of each paycheck, building what I considered a substantial emergency fund. By 29, I had managed to save just over $10,000 for unexpected situations. I lived modestly in a 1-bedroom apartment in Wicker Park, drove a reliable but unflashy Honda Civic, and treated myself occasionally but responsibly. Jessica, on the other hand, followed a different path. 2 years older than me, she always seemed to be the favorite. Where I was practical and cautious, Jessica was spontaneous and charming. She could talk her way into and out of anything. Growing up, if I got a new winter coat, Jessica would somehow end up with a new coat and boots. If I received a B+ on a difficult test, Jessica would be praised for her C because at least she tried her best. This pattern continued into adulthood. When Jessica dropped out of college to find herself, our parents supported her financially for 3 years while she bounced between jobs and relationships. When I asked for help with student loans during a particularly tight month, Dad lectured me about financial independence. "You chose that expensive school," he reminded me, even though it had been his idea for me to attend Michigan State in the first place. The distance between us grew as we aged. After several failed career attempts, Jessica eventually settled into a real estate position in our hometown, conveniently living in our parents' renovated basement until the market improves. She never seemed to have money for rent, but always had funds for new clothes, weekend trips with friends, and the latest iPhone. Our relationship deteriorated further when I declined to be a bridesmaid in her wedding 3 years ago. The requirement to spend $3,000 on a destination bachelorette party in Miami was simply beyond my budget at the time. "If you really cared about me, you would find a way to make it work," she had said. My parents sided with her. Of course. I attended the wedding as a guest, sitting in the back like a distant acquaintance rather than a sister. My mother discovered social media around that time, transforming from someone who barely used a smartphone to an Instagram enthusiast overnight. Her feed became filled with carefully curated family moments that rarely reflected reality. Photos of holiday gatherings captioned, "Blessed with the perfect family," appeared days after heated arguments. Pictures of Mom and Jessica on spontaneous mother-daughter lunch dates materialized when I knew Jessica had only shown up to ask for money. There were warning signs I should have heeded. Last Christmas, I noticed several unusual charges on my credit card statement. When confronted, Jessica admitted she had borrowed my card to buy presents because she was a little short that month. She promised to pay me back but never did. My parents dismissed it as sister sharing and suggested I stop being so uptight about money. 3 months ago, I discovered my banking password had been changed. The bank confirmed someone had called claiming to be me but failed the security questions. When I mentioned this to my family, they seemed unconcerned. Dad joked that I was becoming paranoid, while Mom suggested I probably just forgot my password. Despite these red flags, I continued trying to maintain family harmony. I called weekly, visited monthly, and always remembered birthdays and anniversaries with thoughtful gifts. I genuinely believed that family connections were worth preserving, even through difficulties. I wanted to believe my family loved me as much as I loved them, despite evidence suggesting otherwise. If only I had recognized these small betrayals for what they were. Practice runs for something much bigger. Monday mornings at the marketing agency where I worked usually followed a predictable routine. I would stop for coffee at the corner shop, settle at my desk by 8:30, and spend the first 30 minutes checking emails while organizing my weekly schedule. That particular Monday seemed no different until my coffee break at 10:15. Scrolling through Instagram while waiting for a new pot to brew in the office kitchen, I stopped cold at a photo posted 3 hours earlier. There, against the unmistakable blue domes and whitewashed buildings of Santorini, stood my parents and sister. Their arms were wrapped around each other, sunglasses perched on smiling faces, the Aegean Sea stretching endlessly behind them. The caption read, "Surprise family vacation finally happening. Nothing but real family on this journey. Making memories that will last forever. Hashtag blessed, hashtag family first, hashtag Greece, hashtag Santorini." My coffee cup hovered halfway to my lips as I stared at the screen. My first thought was that it must be an old photo, perhaps from some trip I had forgotten about. But the date stamp showed it was posted that morning. The geotag confirmed Santorini, Greece. I zoomed in on the image, noticing new details. My sister wore a sundress I had never seen. My father sported a fresh haircut. My mother had a new designer handbag hanging from her wrist, the one she had been admiring online when we last spoke. Nothing but real family on this journey. The words echoed in my head as my coworker Rachel entered the kitchen. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, placing her hand on my shoulder. "My family is in Greece," I managed, showing her my phone. They never mentioned a trip. And apparently, I'm not real family. Rachel's expression shifted from concern to outrage as she read the caption. "That's messed up, Kim. Have you called them?" I nodded, already dialing Jessica's number. Straight to voicemail. I tried my parents with the same result. Back at my desk, I found more evidence on their social media accounts. Jessica had posted a series of Instagram stories. A business-class airplane cabin with the caption, "The only way to fly to Europe," a 5-star hotel suite with an infinity pool, a sunset sailing excursion around the Greek islands. The knot in my stomach tightened. My family had never taken lavish vacations. We had grown up camping in Michigan state parks and occasionally visiting relatives in neighboring states. A spontaneous trip to Greece seemed wildly out of character and beyond their financial means. Unless, with trembling fingers, I logged into my banking app. The homepage loaded, showing my checking and savings accounts. Everything appeared normal until I clicked on my emergency savings account. The balance read $87.46. Just last week, it had contained $10,483.27. I frantically checked my transaction history. Over the past week, there had been multiple withdrawals. $3,200 to Olympic Airlines, $5,400 to Celestial Santorini Resort, $1,795, $81 to Aegean Excursions. The room began to spin. I gripped the edge of my desk, trying to process what I was seeing. My family hadn't just gone to Greece without me. They had gone to Greece with my money. "Oh my God," I whispered, loud enough that Tyler from the neighboring cubicle rolled his chair over. "What's wrong?" he asked, genuine concern in his eyes. I could barely form the words. "My family, they stole my emergency fund, over $10,000, for a vacation to Greece that I wasn't invited to." Tyler's expression darkened. "That's not just mean, Kim. That's literally theft." The rest of the workday passed in a blur. I forwarded the transaction details to my personal email, took screenshots of the social media posts, and tried repeatedly to reach my family. No one answered. That evening, curled up on my sofa with Rachel sitting beside me for moral support, I scrolled through more vacation photos that had appeared throughout the day. My mother posing at a lavish restaurant, captioned, "Best Mediterranean food ever." My father and sister on a private tour of ancient ruins. All of them together on a yacht, champagne glasses raised in a toast to family adventures. My phone pinged with a notification from my credit card company. Another charge was pending from Athens Luxury Transportation for $850. I feel like I'm going to throw up, I told Rachel. Rushing to the bathroom. Kneeling on the cold tile floor, I heaved until nothing remained but bitter tears. How could they do this? How could they steal from me, exclude me, and flaunt it publicly? You need to call the bank, Rachel said firmly when I returned. And possibly the police. The thought of reporting my own family for theft made me physically ill again, but I knew she was right. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was calculated betrayal. The next 2 days were among the most difficult of my life. I fluctuated between paralyzing hurt, simmering rage, and occasional moments of doubt. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe this was some elaborate surprise that would make sense eventually. I left dozens of voicemails and texts for my family members. None were returned. Their social media accounts continued updating with photos of their Greek adventure, each post like salt in an open wound. I spoke with my bank about the unauthorized withdrawals, but hesitated to file an official fraud claim. These are family members, I explained to the representative. I want to give them a chance to explain before I take legal action. The bank placed a temporary hold on further transactions, but informed me that family fraud cases were complicated. Without a police report, recovering the funds might be difficult, especially since the money had already been spent. I barely slept. I picked at my food. I went through the motions at work, grateful that my current project was in a lull phase. I researched international banking laws and the statute of limitations on financial crimes, still hoping there would be no need for such measures. On Wednesday evening, my phone pinged with a text message from Jessica. My heart leaped, thinking finally she was responding to my numerous attempts at contact. The message read, "He won't notice. His account's barely active anyway. Dad says book the extra excursion." It took me a moment to realize Jessica had mistakenly sent me a text intended for my father. She wasn't responding to me at all. She was discussing spending more of my money. My hands shook as I typed back, I noticed. 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, reappeared, then vanished again. No response came. That text message was the confirmation I needed. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a banking error. My family had deliberately accessed my account, stolen my emergency fund, and planned to continue spending my money while excluding me from their real family vacation. I called the bank back immediately, this time speaking with a fraud specialist named Sarah. "I'd like to report fraudulent transactions and freeze my account," I said firmly. "I see the temporary hold from your previous call," Sarah replied. "To process a fraud claim, I'll need some additional information." For the next hour, I detailed every unauthorized transaction, confirmed I had not given anyone permission to use my accounts, and forwarded screenshots of Jessica's damning text message. "Family fraud is unfortunately common," Sarah said compassionately. "But that doesn't make it any less serious. We'll flag these charges as fraudulent and begin the investigation process." "What happens next?" I asked. "The merchants will be notified that the charges are disputed. Their payment processing will be suspended, meaning any pending charges or holds will not go through. Since the transactions were international, this might affect their ability to make additional purchases or check out of their accommodations." A small, vindictive part of me hoped it would ruin the rest of their trip. The larger part just felt hollow. "We'll also freeze your accounts to prevent further unauthorized access and issue you new cards and account numbers," Sarah continued. "Do you know how they accessed your accounts? Did you share your passwords or cards?" "No," I said firmly. "But my sister has previously used my credit card without permission for smaller purchases. And 3 months ago, someone tried to change my banking password." Sarah's typing was audible through the phone. Ms. Harris, I'm going to flag this as a priority investigation. I would strongly recommend you consider filing a police report. Family fraud cases are difficult to resolve without one. I thanked her but remained noncommittal about involving law enforcement. Despite everything, the thought of my parents or sister being arrested was still unimaginable. After hanging up, I methodically went through every financial account I had, changing passwords, updating security questions, and enabling two-factor authentication. I removed my saved payment information from every website and canceled automatic payments that weren't essential. I felt simultaneously empowered and devastated. Standing up for myself was necessary, but the circumstances were heartbreaking. I had lost not only my emergency fund, but also my trust in the people who were supposed to love me most. As I finally crawled into bed around midnight, I set my phone to do not disturb mode, excluding only Rachel and my boss from the silence. Whatever fallout would come, I would face it after at least attempting to sleep. Little did I know, the storm would break at exactly 6:08 the next morning. The harsh buzz of my phone vibrating against the bedside table jolted me awake. Bleary-eyed, I fumbled for it, momentarily confused by the constant vibration. When my vision finally focused on the screen, I saw what was happening, a barrage of incoming calls, all from family members. Mom, 6:08 a.m. Dad, 6:09 a.m. Jessica, 6:10 a.m. Mom, 6:11 a.m. Dad, 6:12 a.m. The calls continued, one after another, creating an uninterrupted buzz that matched the anxiety rising in my chest. By the time I fully processed what was happening, I had 26 missed calls and the phone was still vibrating. I silenced it and opened my voicemail app. The first message played in my mother's voice, high-pitched and frantic. Kimberly and Harris. What have you done? The hotel is saying our payment was declined. Your father is speaking with the manager now. This is completely unacceptable. Call me immediately. The second voicemail was from my father, his tone deadly serious. Kim, whatever game you're playing stops now. You're embarrassing this family at an international establishment. Family matters stay within family. You will call back immediately and fix this situation or there will be serious consequences. Each one more desperate or threatening than the last. By the final message, my father had escalated to legal threats. Your sister has informed us about your vindictive text. Falsely reporting family transactions as fraud is a serious offense. If you don't call us back and rectify this immediately, we'll have no choice but to involve our attorney. Family loyalty clearly means nothing to you. My phone pinged with text notifications. Opening the family group chat, I saw a flurry of messages. Mom, the cards aren't working. None of them. Dad, they're saying the charges have been flagged as fraudulent. Jessica, she figured it out. Kim's doing this. Dad at Kimberly fix this now. Mom, we can't check out without paying. They're threatening to call the police. Jessica, I knew giving her access to the new emergency card was a mistake. Dad, your mother is crying in the hotel lobby. Are you happy now? Mom, please Kimberly. We're stuck here. Interspersed among these were private texts from each of them, ranging from my mother's emotional manipulation, how could you do this to the people who raised you and gave you everything, to my sister's vicious attacks, you've always been jealous of me. But this is a new low even for you. As I read through them, another notification appeared, Instagram alerts showing that several of their vacation posts had been deleted, including the real family caption that had started it all. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. The physical symptoms of stress manifested immediately, a tightening in my chest, nausea rising in my throat, a pounding headache forming behind my eyes. I hadn't experienced a panic attack since college, but I recognized the signs. Focusing on my breathing, I called Rachel. They know, I said when she answered, my voice small and shaky. I'll be there in 20 minutes, she replied without hesitation. Don't respond to them yet. While waiting for Rachel, I emailed my boss, Michael. Due to an unexpected family emergency, I need to take a personal day. I've completed the client presentations for tomorrow and will be available by email for urgent matters. I apologize for the short notice. His response came quickly. Take care of yourself, Kim. The team will cover anything urgent. Let me know if you need more time. The simple kindness in his message brought tears to my eyes. Rachel arrived with breakfast and unwavering support. After hearing the barrage of messages, she was adamant. You did nothing wrong. They stole from you, excluded you, then got caught. Their crisis is entirely self-created. Throughout the day, the messages continued. My parents' tone gradually shifted from outrage to bargaining. We'll pay you back when we return. It was going to be a surprise. We were planning to bring you a special gift. Jessica made a mistake with the caption. It wasn't meant to hurt you. My sister's approach remained consistently hostile, alternating between blaming me and minimizing what they'd done. You're so dramatic. It's just money. As if you were actually going to use that emergency fund anyway. Everyone uses each other's accounts. It's what families do. I forwarded the most threatening messages to my email for documentation, then muted all their conversations. That afternoon, I called Dr. Eleanor, a therapist I had seen briefly after a difficult breakup 2 years prior. I can see you tomorrow at 2 p.m., she said after I explained the situation. In the meantime, maintain your boundaries. You're having a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. By evening, my family's tone had changed again. My mother sent a voice message, sobbing about being stranded in a foreign country. My father mentioned having to borrow money from another American family at the hotel, a humiliating experience. Jessica's Instagram showed a post about overcoming unexpected challenges with a sunset view from what was clearly their hotel balcony. Rachel stayed over that night, sleeping on my sofa after we ordered takeout and watched mindless comedy shows that temporarily distracted me from the situation. Before falling into an exhausted sleep, I checked my bank app once more. The fraud investigation was officially underway, and all my accounts showed alerts for unusual activity monitoring. Whatever happened next, there was no going back to the family dynamic we had before. Whether they realized it yet or not, everything had changed. 5 days after discovering the theft, I received a terse text from my father, landing at O'Hare 3:15 p.m. tomorrow. Be at the house by 6. We need to talk. The message was not a request, but a command, assuming I would simply appear at their convenience after everything that had happened. After consulting with Rachel and Dr. Eleanor, I decided to take control of the situation. I'm not coming to the house, I replied. If you want to talk, we can meet at Rachel's apartment at 7 p.m. I'll text you the address. The response was immediate. This is a family matter. No outsiders. Rachel stays, or there's no meeting, I insisted. Those are my terms. After a lengthy delay, fine. 7 p.m. I spent the next 24 hours preparing. I printed bank statements highlighting the unauthorized transactions. I compiled screenshots of their social media posts, including the deleted ones I'd saved. I created a timeline of events, including Jessica's damning text message. Dr. Eleanor helped me prepare emotionally, practicing responses to likely scenarios and reminding me that maintaining boundaries wasn't selfish but necessary. Rachel cleaned her apartment meticulously, setting up the living room with enough seating for everyone. She placed a pitcher of water and glasses on the coffee table, creating an atmosphere that was neither hostile nor overly welcoming. Remember, she said as we waited for my family to arrive, you did nothing wrong. They violated your trust, stole your money, and tried to manipulate you when caught. Stay focused on those facts. At precisely 7:02 p.m., the doorbell rang. Rachel squeezed my hand before going to answer it. I remained seated, consciously controlling my breathing. My family entered as a unit, presenting a unified front. My mother's eyes were puffy from crying, while my father's jaw was set in a rigid line. Jessica hung slightly behind them, her expression a mixture of defiance and apprehension. Kimberly, my mother said, stepping forward with arms extended for a hug I didn't reciprocate. Please sit down, I said, gesturing to the sofa opposite my chair. Rachel took a seat beside me, nodding politely to my family. Is this really necessary? My father asked, glancing at Rachel. Having an audience for family business? Rachel stays, I repeated firmly. She's here for support and because I trust her. The implication that I didn't trust them hung in the air. My family reluctantly sat down, my parents together on the sofa while Jessica perched on an armchair to their right. You've put us in a very difficult position, my father began, using his authoritative voice that had intimidated me throughout childhood. Your actions resulted in us having to borrow money from strangers and rearrange our entire vacation schedule. My actions? I repeated incredulously. Let's be clear about what happened. You accessed my accounts without permission, stole over $10,000 from my emergency fund, used it for a family vacation that explicitly excluded me, then became angry when I discovered the theft and protected my finances. It wasn't theft, my mother interjected, tears already forming. We're family. We would have paid you back. When? I asked. And why didn't you ask me first? We knew you'd say no, Jessica said, rolling her eyes. You're always so uptight about money. Responsible, I corrected. I'm responsible with money. That's why I had an emergency fund to begin with. My father leaned forward, attempting to take control of the conversation. Look, things got out of hand. We should have discussed it with you first. But falsely reporting fraud has created serious problems. We had to use your mother's retirement account to pay the hotel after your stunt. It wasn't a false report, I said, opening my folder of evidence. Let me walk you through exactly what happened. For the next 15 minutes, I methodically presented the evidence, the unauthorized transactions, the social media posts, Jessica's text message. I explained how they had accessed my account using my old password, which Jessica had apparently memorized during the Christmas borrowing incident. You never change your passwords. Jessica muttered defensively. It's your own fault for making it so easy. Rachel made a small noise of disbelief beside me but remained silent as promised. Why? I finally asked, looking directly at my mother. Why exclude me and then use my money? For a moment, her facade cracked. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she admitted. The trip was Jessica's idea initially. Just for her and us. But then we looked at costs. And decided I should fund it without knowing or being invited? I finished. You have plenty of money, Jessica interrupted. You never take vacations or do anything fun. That money was just sitting there while we never get to travel. It was an emergency fund, I said slowly, as if explaining to a child. For emergencies. Not for your Greek vacation. We were going to bring you a really nice souvenir, my mother offered weakly. The caption, I said, turning to her. Nothing but real family on this journey. Explain that. My mother flushed. That was unfortunate phrasing. I meant the core family. The three of us who have always been so close while you've been off in Chicago focusing on your career. The hurt must have shown on my face because Rachel reached over to squeeze my hand again. The truth, my father interjected, is that we've been planning this trip for your mother's birthday for months. Jessica lost her commission on a big sale that was going to fund part of it. We were in a tight spot. So you decided theft was the solution? I asked. It wasn't theft, all three exclaimed almost simultaneously. Taking money without permission is theft. Rachel said quietly, breaking her silence. Whether it's family or not. My father turned to her, anger flashing in his eyes. This doesn't concern you. It does when Kim shows up at my apartment having a panic attack because her family stole her emergency fund and then blamed her for catching them, Rachel replied calmly. The conversation devolved from there. My mother cried harder, claiming I was choosing an outsider over blood. My father threatened to cut me out of their will if I didn't drop the fraud claim immediately. Jessica alternated between sullen silence and sharp accusations about my privileged lifestyle. Throughout it all, I maintained my position. What they did was wrong, regardless of their justifications. So what now? My father finally demanded. You're going to let this tear the family apart over money? This isn't about money, I said clearly. It's about trust, respect, and boundaries. You violated all three. We're your parents. My mother sobbed. After everything we've done for you. Yes, you raised me, I acknowledged. You taught me about financial responsibility and the importance of emergency funds. Then you stole mine. The irony was apparently lost on them. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, surprised by my own steadiness. The fraud investigation will continue because that's what this was, fraud. I've frozen all my accounts and changed all my passwords. Going forward, you will have zero access to my finances. And what about family? My father demanded. That's up to you, I replied honestly. I'm open to rebuilding our relationship eventually, but only with genuine accountability and new boundaries. Boundaries, Jessica scoffed. Always so dramatic. My father stood abruptly. Until you drop this fraud nonsense, consider yourself no longer part of this family. We won't be humiliated like this. My mother gasped, but didn't contradict him. Jessica smirked slightly. That's your choice, I said, fighting to keep my voice from trembling. I'm sorry you see it that way. You'll regret this, my father warned as they moved toward the door. When you need your family and we're not there, you'll remember this moment. After they left, the apartment seemed unnaturally quiet. Rachel sat beside me in silence for several minutes before asking, "Are you okay?" I wasn't, not really. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I will be, I answered truthfully. For the first time, I see them clearly. That's worth something. The weeks following the confrontation were simultaneously the most difficult and most transformative of my adult life. The immediate aftermath brought a flurry of hostile messages from my family. Ranging from my mother's emotional appeals, "How could you choose money over family?" to my father's cold legal threats and Jessica's vindictive social media posts vaguely referencing toxic family members who show their true colors when challenged. I maintained my distance, responding only to direct questions with brief, factual answers. Dr. Eleanor called this detached engagement and assured me it was healthier than either complete silence or emotional reactions. The banking investigation proceeded slowly. Sarah, my fraud specialist, called regularly with updates. Family fraud cases are complicated, she explained during our third call. The good news is we've recovered about 60% of the funds so far. The remaining amount may require additional steps. Following Dr. Eleanor's advice, I consulted with Jennifer, an attorney specializing in financial crimes. She outlined my legal options clearly. You have enough evidence for a criminal complaint, but that would likely result in charges against your family members. Alternatively, we could pursue civil action to recover the remaining funds. After careful consideration, I decided against pressing criminal charges, but kept the option of civil action open, depending on the bank's final resolution. Work became an unexpected sanctuary. Michael, my boss, proved surprisingly understanding when I finally explained the situation. Family stuff is complicated, he said. Take the time you need, but know there's an opportunity here too. He mentioned an upcoming position managing our new client accounts that would include a significant salary increase. You've demonstrated exceptional judgment under pressure. That's exactly what we need in leadership. The promotion came through 3 weeks later, providing not just professional validation, but also the financial means to begin rebuilding my emergency fund sooner than expected. My social circle transformed during this period. Some acquaintances drifted away, uncomfortable with the messy family drama or swayed by my mother's increasingly public narrative painting me as the villain. Others stepped forward in ways I never anticipated. Tyler from work invited me to a financial wellness group that met monthly to discuss investment strategies and savings goals. Paula from my apartment building introduced me to her book club, creating a regular social outlet when I most needed one. Rachel remained steadfast, inviting me to family dinners with her parents who treated me with a warmth that highlighted what healthy family dynamics could look like. 2 months after the confrontation, I moved to a new apartment in a different neighborhood. The decision was partially financial, but mostly symbolic. A fresh start in a space that carried no memories of tearful phone calls or sleepless nights worrying about family drama. Rachel and Tyler helped me move, turning the potentially melancholy day into something closer to a celebration. New beginnings, Rachel toasted with pizza and beer once we'd assembled my bed frame. To boundaries and better days. My mother's social media campaign intensified as major holidays approached. Photos of family gatherings appeared with captions like, "So blessed to have loyal family together this season," and "Some people choose money over love, but we choose each other always." Mutual acquaintances reported that she openly described me as having abandoned the family over a simple misunderstanding. These public attempts at manipulation stung, but less severely as time passed. Dr. Eleanor helped me recognize the patterns of emotional control that had defined our relationship for years. "Notice how she's still centering herself as the victim," she pointed out during one session. "That's not someone ready to take responsibility or change." The first holiday season alone loomed as a significant hurdle. Thanksgiving had always been at my parents' house, Christmas Eve at Jessica's, and Christmas Day back at the family home. The thought of navigating November and December without these familiar traditions initially felt overwhelming. "Create new traditions," Dr. Eleanor suggested. "Reclaim these days with people who respect your boundaries." Rachel's invitation to join her family for Thanksgiving provided the first opportunity. Her parents welcomed me warmly, making space at their table without interrogating me about the family rift. For the first time in years, I enjoyed a holiday meal without walking on eggshells or moderating my opinions to avoid conflict. Christmas presented a different challenge, one I decided to meet head-on. I organized a chosen family gathering at my new apartment, inviting Rachel, Tyler, Paula, and several others who had provided support during the difficult months. We exchanged modest gifts, shared a potluck dinner, and played board games until midnight. It wasn't perfect or polished like my mother's carefully orchestrated Christmas celebrations, but it was genuine and joyful. An unexpected bright spot appeared just before New Year's Eve. A letter arrived from my grandmother, my father's mother, who lived in Arizona and rarely involved herself in family politics. "Kimberly," she wrote in her distinctive flowing script, "I've heard conflicting stories about what happened this year. Your father and Jessica have their version, but I've known you since you were born. You were always the responsible one, the thoughtful one. Whatever occurred, I trust you had your reasons. My door and heart remain open to you, regardless of what your parents decide." She included a check for $500 with a note, "A small contribution to your emergency fund. Everyone deserves security." The gesture brought me to tears, not just for the financial support, but for the validation from someone who had known me my entire life. I called her that evening, and our conversation, while careful to avoid detailed discussion of the rift, re-established a connection I hadn't realized I was missing. 6 months after the confrontation, my financial situation had stabilized. The bank had recovered most of the stolen funds, my promotion included a substantial raise, and my new budget allowed for modest but consistent contributions to a rebuilt emergency fund. Jennifer, my attorney, sent a formal letter to my parents regarding the remaining unrecovered amount, resulting in a cashier's check arriving without accompanying note or acknowledgement. During this period of rebuilding, I met Andrew through a cooking class Tyler had convinced me to join. Initially, I was hesitant to pursue any relationship while still processing family trauma, but Andrew's patience and understanding gradually wore down my reservations. By summer, we were dating steadily. His respect for my boundaries a constant reminder of what healthy relationships should feel like. "My family's a bit complicated right now," I had explained early on. "Families usually are," he replied simply. "I'm interested in getting to know you, not judging your family situation." 7 months after the Greece incident, Jessica reached out unexpectedly. Her text was brief. "Can we talk?" "Just us." After consulting with Dr. Eleanor, I agreed to meet at a neutral coffee shop. Jessica arrived looking less polished than usual, her typical confidence somewhat diminished. "I've been in therapy," she began without preamble. "Turns out I have some issues with entitlement and impulse control." It wasn't quite the apology I had hoped for, but it was something. "The Greece thing," she continued awkwardly, "I know it was wrong. I justified it at the time, told myself you wouldn't miss the money and we deserved a nice vacation. Mom and Dad still don't really get why you were so upset, but I do." I crossed a line. Several lines, I corrected gently. She nodded. Yeah, several big ones. Our conversation lasted nearly 2 hours, touching on childhood patterns, parental favoritism, and the competitive dynamic that had defined our relationship. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a first step towards something new and potentially healthier. My parents remained distant, occasionally sending formal messages about family business matters, but avoiding any acknowledgement of what had occurred. My mother continued her social media narrative of having been abandoned by her younger daughter, though the posts became less frequent as the months passed. Nearly a year after discovering that Instagram post from Santorini, I sat in Dr. Eleanor's office for what we had decided would be our final regular session. How would you describe your progress? She asked. I considered the question carefully. I'm not who I was a year ago. I'm stronger, more confident in my boundaries. I understand now that family is about respect and trust, not just blood. I've built connections with people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. And the hurt, she prompted gently. Still there, I admitted. But it's not crippling anymore. It's more like an old injury that aches sometimes, but doesn't prevent me from moving forward. That's an excellent metaphor, she nodded approvingly. Healing doesn't always mean the complete absence of pain. It means the pain no longer controls your life. As I left her office that day, I felt a sense of completion. The emergency fund that had been wiped out was now fully restored. The relationships that had been damaged were either healing or had been replaced with healthier ones. The boundaries that had been violated were now firmly established and maintained. The journey hadn't been easy, but I had emerged from it with something invaluable. The knowledge that I could survive betrayal, stand firm in my truth, and rebuild what had been broken, sometimes into something even stronger than before. 1 year after discovering my family's Greek vacation funded by my stolen emergency fund, I stood in my kitchen preparing dinner for Andrew while reflecting on how dramatically my life had changed. The woman I had been 12 months ago would hardly recognize the person I had become through necessity, growth, and painful self-discovery. My emergency fund now exceeded its previous balance, bolstered by my promotion and more disciplined spending habits. More importantly, it was secured with bank protections that would prevent unauthorized access, with alerts for unusual activity sent directly to my phone. My financial literacy had expanded beyond basic savings to include investments, retirement planning, and insurance coverage that my previous self had perpetually placed on the someday list. My relationship with my family had evolved into something I would have once considered unimaginable, but now recognized as necessary. Contact with my parents remained minimal and structured. After several months of silence, following my meeting with Jessica, my mother had reached out with a carefully worded invitation to Sunday dinner that conspicuously avoided any mention of past events. We miss having you at family gatherings, she wrote, as if my absence had been a personal choice rather than the consequence of their actions. I accepted the invitation but set clear parameters. We would meet at a restaurant rather than their home, the visit would be limited to 2 hours, and any attempt to manipulate or minimize what had happened would result in my immediate departure. To my surprise, they agreed. That dinner had been awkward but civil, establishing a pattern for our limited interactions going forward. My father remained somewhat distant, uncomfortable with the power shift in our relationship. My mother alternated between treating me with cautious respect and slipping into old patterns of emotional manipulation that I now recognized and deflected. Jessica's progress proved more substantial. Her therapy continued, addressing not just our family dynamics, but her own financial management issues. During a coffee meeting 3 weeks ago, she had finally offered the genuine apology I had been waiting for. I was jealous, she admitted. You built this independent life while I stayed stuck in the same patterns. Taking your money was wrong, and the caption was deliberately cruel. I wanted to hurt you because I envied you, and I'm truly sorry. That conversation marked a turning point, opening the possibility of rebuilding something resembling a sisterly relationship, though one very different from what we had before. My professional life flourished in ways I hadn't anticipated. The promotion Michael offered had led to additional responsibilities and recognition. My ability to maintain boundaries and manage difficult situations translated well to client relationships and team leadership. 3 weeks ago, I had been approached about an even more senior position that would include partial ownership in the agency. "You've proven yourself exceptionally resilient," the company president had remarked. "That's a quality we value tremendously in leadership." Perhaps the most profound change came in my personal relationships. The crisis had revealed which connections in my life were genuine and which were superficial. Some friends had disappeared when the family drama became uncomfortable. Others had stepped forward with unexpected support. Rachel remained my closest friend, our bond strengthened through shared experience. Tyler had become a valued colleague and friend whose financial group introduced me to a network of like-minded individuals. Andrew and I had recently begun discussing moving in together, a step I approached with both excitement and careful consideration. "I love that you don't rush decisions," he had said when I asked for time to think about it. "Your thoughtfulness is one of the things I admire most about you." My relationship with my grandmother had deepened through regular phone calls and an extended visit to Arizona. At 82, she offered perspective that helped me contextualize my parents' behavior without excusing it. "Your father was raised to believe family loyalty trumps everything, even when it's harmful," she explained during my visit. "It doesn't make what they did right, but understanding patterns can help you break them in your own life." That insight proved invaluable as I worked to define what family meant to me now. The traditional definition that had guided my life had been irreparably altered, replaced by something more nuanced and ultimately healthier: family as those who respect your boundaries, honor your trust, and support your growth, regardless of blood relation. The financial lessons were equally significant. I had learned to recognize warning signs of financial abuse, the small, borrowing incidents that tested boundaries, the dismissal of concerns as uptight or selfish, the guilt trips about having resources others wanted to access. I had developed safeguards against future violations and become more vocal about financial boundaries in all relationships. My emergency fund, once simply a practical necessity, now represented something more profound: self-protection, independence, and the wisdom to prepare for life's uncertainties. The painful irony that my parents had taught me to create this fund only to later steal it had evolved into a powerful lesson about walking the difficult line between family connection and self-preservation. As I set the table for dinner with Andrew, I received a text from Jessica. "Found this while cleaning. Thought you might want it." Attached was a photo of us as children, arms around each other at a lake house our family used to visit each summer. Looking at our young, smiling faces, I felt a complex mixture of sadness for what had been lost and cautious hope for what might still be salvaged. I showed Andrew the photo when he arrived, explaining its significance. "Do you think you'll ever fully trust them again?" he asked. "Trust is earned," I replied after considering his question. "I'm open to them earning it back. But I'll never again mistake blind faith for family loyalty." He nodded, understanding the weight behind my words. "That seems healthy to me." Perhaps that was the most important lesson from this painful journey: distinguishing between healthy and unhealthy relationships, between genuine support and manipulation disguised as love. I had learned to value myself enough to establish boundaries, even when doing so caused short-term pain or invited criticism. The emergency fund had been rebuilt, stronger and more secure than before. So too had I been rebuilt, transformed by betrayal into someone more discerning, more resilient, and ultimately more at peace with the understanding that family, like all relationships, must be founded on mutual respect to truly flourish. I share this story not to villainize my family, but to remind anyone watching that you deserve respect, particularly from those closest to you. Financial boundaries are real boundaries. Taking someone's money without permission is theft, even when done by family. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stand firm when those boundaries are crossed. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? Share your experience in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more about navigating complicated family dynamics and building healthy relationships. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that healing isn't always linear, but it is always possible.